Welcome back to the Astrology Magic Podcast, where we talk about astrology in a way that helps you create magic in your life. And I am Rachel, your host, and today we are going to talk about lunar returns. I've already wrote a couple articles on lunar returns. I'll put them in the show notes below if you want to learn what a lunar return chart is before watching this episode, or if you want to reference the most recent article I made on lunar returns, which was how to make them more specific, part one. And in there, I talk about layering your lunar return house, the house that your moon falls in for that month, over your natal chart house. If you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, then read the first article on lunar returns and then read this one before continuing to listen to this episode, because we're getting into part two on how to make lunar returns super specific so they're not fucking vague and useless in your life. Okay? So, today, we are going to talk about how the aspects, how your lunar return chart and the different planet positions you have. So maybe you have Venus at a certain sign and degree, or you have Pluto in a certain sign and degree, the midheaven in a certain sign and degree. Those planets in your lunar return chart could be aspecting your natal chart. And that means this lunar return month is activating certain themes and lessons, like lifelong lessons from your natal chart. So I'm going to use me as an example because my next lunar return is in 2 days. And I always find that about a few days before, maybe even up to a week before my lunar return date, that a lot of my lunar return lessons and themes start popping and bubbling up in my life. And or it's like basically like the energy, the emotions, the scenarios are already forming. And so I'll look at my coming up lunar return about the week before because it will give me a lot of clarity as things start to happen in my life. I find around your lunar return, emotional things can happen, more significant things can happen in your life that are asking you to navigate certain patterns. And the more aware you are of them beforehand, it's almost like you can take a bird's eye view of the pattern instead of being so in it. Because remember, this is a lunar return. It's looking at your emotional patterns, and it's hard to see the pattern when you're inside the emotion. Okay. So, for example, this upcoming lunar return I have, the moon is in my 10th house. The 10th house in astrology is my career, my reputation, my authority, how I'm seen as an authority, how I'm seen in the public eye. And my moon in Pisces is with the North Node in Pisces, which is also with Mercury retrograde in Pisces and with Mars in Pisces. So there's this big stellium happening in my lunar return chart this month. Okay. Now, I've had so many themes around a big theme this month is how I am going to lead myself in stepping more into my authority, since lunar returns in the 10th house. And if we're going to combine it over my natal moon, which my natal moon in Pisces is in the fifth house is my authentic expression, my creative projects, my joy, entrepreneurship. So this month is about taking my authentic self-expression and healing patterns around my authority. And since Mars is with the moon, it's how I wield my authority. Okay. If you were just to take your lunar return chart and put it into ChatGPT, like take your lunar return data and put it into ChatGPT, it can give you some of those lessons and aspects, but it gets so much more detailed in how it layers in with my birth chart, and I'll tell you why. So, this lunar return month, I have two very significant exact aspects that are overlaying very prominent planet positions in my birth chart. I have Jupiter in Cancer at 15 degrees, or we all have Jupiter in Cancer right now at 15 degrees. In my lunar return chart, it's in the second house. And in my lunar return chart, it is in a trine, a harmonious aspect to my moon and that stellium in Pisces with the North Node, and it's in a square to Venus in Aries in the 11th house in my lunar return. Now, this aspect pattern is significant, very significant for me this month because Jupiter in Cancer at 15 degrees is exactly on top of my midheaven in my natal birth chart because I have my midheaven at 15 degrees Cancer. So right now, I am going through growth and expansion in my reputation, my career, my authority. Cancer's ruled by the moon too. So this is a big month of emotionally feeling my way into becoming more of an authority. This month is asking, how am I going to lead myself? How am I going to direct? Because Mars is with the moon. Direct myself this month. Okay. Now, what's also interesting is the midheaven in my lunar return chart. It's actually not in Pisces, even though Pisces is in the 10th house. It's in Aquarius. The midheaven's in Aquarius for this lunar return. That midheaven's at 24 degrees Aquarius. It is aspecting exactly, just like Jupiter in Cancer is, a prominent pattern in my natal chart because I have a T square, which, for anyone who wants to know, it's one of the most challenging aspect patterns you can have in astrology. I have a T square in my birth chart involving my sun in Taurus in the eighth house, my Pluto, which opposes my Pluto in Scorpio in the second house. They're both at 24 degrees and they're creating an apex with my Saturn in Aquarius at the 29th degree, forming the apex of the T square. Now, I just told you my sun and Pluto are at 24 degrees. My midheaven in this lunar return is at 24 degrees Aquarius. So it is completing the T square. It is activating the T square in my natal chart. I know this is a little bit advanced astrology, but if you follow astrology, you'll know what the fuck I'm talking about. If you don't, the My Certainty Oracle that I built, that I offer people, does this for you. It knows these things for you. That's why I built it. I built it for myself first because it helped. It pointed out patterns I couldn't see when I was in them and layered them on top of my natal chart. And it's given me so many breakthroughs, including the ones I'm about to talk about that I've already had this week coming up to my next lunar return. So, which by the way, no, I'm not going to go into that tangent yet. I'll go into that tangent in a second. Okay, so this month is also significant for my public eye because in my lunar return, midheaven is activating the T square in my natal chart, which is like my lifelong theme. And in my natal chart, that lifelong theme is me owning my authentic expression, owning my worth, and owning my power all at the same time. That's why they're challenging to integrate. I need to not give any fucks about what anyone thinks about me while still staying in enough love and care for humanity to own my value and own my power and not let people take my power away. Because I'm here to trust myself and trust my truth. That's that pattern in my natal chart. And my lunar return is activating that this month. So if we combine that pattern with the fact that I am leading my way as an authority and feeling my way into being an authority this month, those themes are going to come up into my life. Now, my lunar return this month also has Mercury retrograde. So I'm reflecting on the past with my natal moon. It's at 8 degrees. My natal moon's at 8 degrees. The North Node's at 8 degrees. They're all hanging out at the exact same degree together. There's a lot of karmic shit happening, a lot of very exact layers happening between my lunar return and my natal chart. So, I've already had 2 instances pop up around my authority in projects that I'm building where I've had to take my power back and set boundaries, which is really interesting because remember, Mars is us leading with authority. Mars rules Saturn right now in Aries. Mars also rules Venus in Aries and Neptune in Aries because Mars rules Aries. And so how I wield myself is going to be around setting boundaries, feeling my way through things, Neptune, and how I set up contracts with other people, Venus, right? And Venus is squaring Jupiter in my lunar return, which I told you was on top of my midheaven. They're all telling me lead in a new way, learn from your past. So leading up to my lunar return, this past week, I have been forced into hiring someone to develop the back end of my Certainty Oracle AI, the very thing I'm talking about constantly because I'm obsessed with, and I'm sharing with you guys now. Because my Certainty Oracle AI has been relying on the people who use it to go to AstroSeek to copy and paste their chart data because it has ChatGPT chart data on AstroSeek into my Certainty Oracle. And then my Certainty Oracle has instructions to take all that chart data and give them the reading in a way that would layer it in a way I would read it. A professional astrologer would. It goes way deeper than the specifics of a basic reading. But the problem is this past week, tech issue, Mercury retrograde, AstroSeek had to shut down people's ability to be able to access that data unless you're already a registered user on the account because they had a breach of a bunch of bots going on and scraping their data and they had to shut down the site because the bots overloaded it, which is a really sad Pluto and Aquarius thing. That's the dark side of these AI bots is they're taking sites that we all use and love and ruining them. And so my Pluto and Aquarius ass was like, well, I'm going to take my fucking power back with this technology and build my own backend that calculates charts. So if AstroSeek shuts down again, it doesn't fuck with my product. So if you have my Certainty Oracle right now and you have a registered user account, you can set up my Certainty Oracle and get your new readings right now. But if you're just new to setting up a registered account, then you can't access that data right now. And that's sad. That's sad, you know? I already had one person who's bought my Certainty Oracle reply to my email and be like, oh my God, I never realized how much I relied on this stuff. Like I tell everyone about my Certainty Oracle and I can't use it right now because AstroSeek is down. And I was like, I know, girl. I feel you. I am sad too. So if you have a registered account on AstroSeek, you can use my Certainty Oracle right now. You can go grab it in the show notes for the price it's at now because it's only at $47 right now. I made it half off. And I'm going to put it back up to 97 once I get this back end fixed. So if you want to grab it now, I would grab it. It's in the show notes, okay? But I was like, I need to hire someone because I've built this bot to calculate these charts and calculate the readings, but this back end and having to develop API and calculate things off site and then integrate it into my bot, that's beyond my pay grade, beyond what I want to learn. I don't want to fucking learn about that. I'm not that techie, okay? So I looked into hiring someone. Well, before I looked into hiring someone, I talked to my dad because my dad used to be the chief architect, technology developer at Sun Microsystems, which is now Oracle. He's my tech guy, you know. So I'm always gonna go to my dad first. But my dad is really intense like me. He wants to do everything himself. He thinks I can do everything myself. And he was being really intense and like trying to convince me, no, we'll build this together. We'll just get it done, even though he has a whole business he's running. And Mercury retrograde, based on my lunar return, I was reflecting on the past and how I used to just strong arm and go with what the other person wanted. That's that T square getting activated in my chart. But this month, it said I need to learn to wield my leadership and set my boundaries. Remember? That's what I told you, layering the two charts together said. So at first, my dad kind of strong armed me and tried to get me to just build it with him. I love him. He meant the best. He just wants to help. But I sat with it and I was like, that is me falling into an old pattern. Because when we've done this in the past, he helps me for a time and then I'm left with it all on my own and then it never gets anywhere. And then I just wasted all that time and energy and I could have just hired someone because he's too busy, you know? And I got to set that boundary for both of us. And so I ended up doing that. And he said he respected my boundary. And that was like big for me. And then I had another opportunity. Of course, right around my lunar return, I'm hiring a developer. I'm looking into a community, 11th house. Remember, I have Venus in the 11th house this month in a challenging aspect to Jupiter in my second house of money and resources and how I'm spending money. Well, and it's Mercury retrograde too, so I'm being very careful with the developer that I'm picking. Well, I found one that felt right, right? Pisces vibes. I'm going off vibes. I've talked to a lot of developers. There was just one person that I was like, it's you. I could tell it was him out of all the people I talked to. But then he wanted to take the project off of the freelancing site I'm hiring him on. And I reflected on my past Mercury retrograde and thought, how did I screw myself over through a power struggle with someone else? Because that T square was activated in my natal chart before. Well, two times I have hosted retreats in the past and took the contract off of Airbnb or whatever, wherever we were signing the contract. Both times I got screwed over, and not just screwed over a little bit, in a big way financially. And so as soon as he sent me that contract to do it off of there, I was like, no, even though I love you and I like you and I want to go with you, I set the boundary. Remember, it's how I lead my month. And an old version of me would have just went with it because I talked to so many people and I loved him. But no, I learned my lesson because I was navigating this lunar return and I said, no, bitch, no, bitch. We are keeping this on the freelancer website to protect me because I learned from the past. And I feel so badass. I feel like I'm wielding my authority in a new way and setting boundaries and not giving my power away, which is what that T square is being activated in my lunar return. I'm showing up in a new and detached way as my midheaven in Aquarius. So hopefully you followed that. Hopefully that wasn't just, wow, Rachel's just talking so passionately. I have no what idea what the fuck she's saying. If you understand even basic, like if you know astrology, you'll follow what I said and you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll have this written out in an article so you can read the layout down below of how I compare the aspects in a lunar return to the natal chart. But I even just gave two examples of how my natal chart and lunar return chart are having conversations and how that gave me such specific guidance this past week. I already grew and evolved. I already exited old patterns that I wanted to just quickly say yes, Venus and Aries, to both my dad and this guy, but I didn't. I slowed down the emotion because I had my lunar return. So that is the part two of how you compare the aspects. I'd love to know what you thought of this. I'd love to know your takeaways. I'd love to know if you use lunar returns. Um, and if you want to grab my Certainty Oracle, well, it's only $47. It is in the show notes. I love you. Bye.